Hello, everyone. Welcome to the City Leaders Podcast. I'm Mike Decker, and joining me in the studio today really is more than a city leader. In my opinion, he's a city legend, and that's Mr. Fran Ursini. Fran, welcome.
Thank you.
Do you feel like a legend?
Yes, because I'm old.
So, the purpose of this podcast, for those of you who might be tuning in for the first time, is my goal is really several. One is I want people to, for those who are local and who are part of Orange County, and particularly Costa Mesa, I want to introduce you to individuals who I consider to be shareholders, men and women who really have given their life to the city to make it kind of who we are. And so the hope is that you can meet them and maybe even glean some principles that you might want to apply in your own life. And then really for those of you tuning in from outside of the area, outside of the state, and some of you are even tuning in from Canada, I know. Again, the hope is that as you listen to these conversations, as you watch them on video, if you're tuning in that way, is that maybe you'll just, again, grab a couple of principles that you can apply, and hopefully it'll stimulate you to invest in your own local community. So today, as I mentioned already, we are joined by Fran Ursini. And Fran, we're going to go back. I want to go back in time because part of this is just me getting to know you a little bit better. As we've talked a little bit, I've watched you, and we've interacted casually, I think, and somewhat professionally over the last 20 years. But for today, kind of in present day context, why don't you just share with our viewers, our listeners, you're in the restaurant business. Kind of what you do, what's kind of your deal right now?
Well, I've been in the restaurant business at Newport Rib Company. I started it 35 years ago.
Okay.
And at that time, I was working every day and hustling real well. And then I had a son, John Ursini, who's running it now. And he came into the business, and I think he brought it to another level. I mean, I worked hard, but they use all the modern technology now to help the business go along. And I work with him now. He's my boss.
Okay.
And I really enjoy it. I'm very lucky. I have 3 kids, and they're all in the restaurant business. We have another restaurant up in Naples Island in Long Beach. And my other son runs that, and things are going good, but we work hard, and they do.
So if you're a local, like many of you are tuning in, Newport Rib Company is a familiar restaurant, very philanthropic, and we're going to talk a little bit about just the philanthropy and kind of, how you got started, and maybe some of the kind of the backstory to that. But I want to go back really even further, Fran, and just to kind of, for me to give a context of your story. How did you land in Costa Mesa? Were you born here?
Originally, I was born in Chicago.
Okay.
And I lived in Chicago the first 25 years of my life. Had great parents, immigrants from Italy.
Okay.
And when I was at the University of Illinois, I had a sister living out here, and my folks left Chicago and moved to California. And at that time, I was with my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and we were both going to the University of Illinois, but we broke up for a couple of years.
Okay.
And when my folks came out here, I didn't have a house to go to, so I came out here. And I really liked it, and I finished my education at Chapman College. And then I did go back to Chicago, and I reinvented my girlfriend, and about a year later we got married.
Okay.
So it worked. And that was like, well, we've been married 56 years, so
wow.
You count it.
Congratulations.
So at that time, my dad was playing around with a little hamburger stand down at the beach off the Newport Pier on the corner of 22nd and Oceanfront, right on the parking lot. And it became kind of too much for him. And he said, well, why don't you take over the hamburger stand? So I did. And I ran a couple of hamburger stands down there, the corner of 22nd and Oceanfront, and also right now that stand is called, the other stand I ran was called a pipeline now.
Okay.
And it's right on the base of the Newport Pier.
My daughter worked there. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, one summer she
good.
worked there, so I'm familiar with pipeline.
Yeah. So, I really worked hard for about 4 months a year.
Okay.
And then
the seasonal
September
part.
it was
Yeah.
really seasonable
Yeah.
back in those days, in the 60s I'm talking, and the early 70s. So I worked hard and took not the whole winters off, but I didn't work as hard in the wintertime. And I was lucky enough to make a few investments in property at the beach.
Okay.
And if you bought anything in the 60s or 70s, I don't care what you bought, you couldn't go wrong. So that really is what boosted me up a lot. And I'm lucky enough to have my daughter and her husband run the pipeline. And they also took over the other property and managed that. So
Okay.
that's how.
So, like when you were in college at the university, were you getting taking classes in the restaurant business?
No.
Or, okay.
I never dreamed of the restaurant business.
So when your folks moved out here, they
Yeah.
just sort of started that on their own, the hamburger stand, or
No, it was a hamburger stand there, and he bought the whole block, kind of
Okay.
like a half block, and it was a seasonal thing. He didn't want to work too hard either. So, and I'll tell you, he paid $55,000 for the block in Newport Beach.
so it's gone up
and
a little
and
bit.
the hamburger stand. So he,
That's awesome.
he lives in Whittier, and it was kind of a long drive.
So really, one of my questions is in terms of the evolution of your career, what led you into the food industry. It seems like it was just, hey, your dad had a shop and you sort of stepped into it. And did you have like a knack for it right away? I mean, to run a business, as you know, takes incredible stamina and hard work. And I mean, did it just come natural for you?
I don't know if it came natural, but I think I've done okay. I'm not a cook. If you see me at in the back cooking, don't eat there. But I think I'm pretty good with people, and that's really a big part of business, with your help and with the customers. And I hired kids from Newport Harbor and Costa Mesa and Corona del Mar and Estancia. I'd have 30 or 40 kids working for me every summer. And they'd come back every summer. They would return. In fact, still now, I get kids will stop by Newport Rib and say hello, and they're not kids anymore. They're in their 60s.
Wow.
So it's really nice, though. I find notes on my desk, and it worked out good.
So I was doing the math as you said you moved out here. After you were 25, and you and Karen have been married for 56 years.
Yeah.
So you're an octogenarian, are you?
Yes.
And we know age is just a number.
No, it isn't.
It's real.
Yeah, I'm 80 years old.
But the beauty of this, again, and what I hope you'll capture, those of you tuning in, is here's a man that as we're gonna hear his story more and more, you're still rolling up your sleeves, and you're still adding value, and just want to thank you for that, because Fran, that's a phenomenal example that you're setting for all of us as we try to walk in your footsteps.
Well, I'm lucky enough to work with 3 kids that really like me, and they like me around. And working in Costa Mesa, I have people when I go places will say, hey, thanks a lot for doing a lot for Costa Mesa. And I appreciate that. I don't know if they like my food or not, but I get a compliment that way, and I think that really means a lot to me.
So so you're Italian, right? You mentioned that. Ursini, that's an easy guess. Why ribs? Why not, how'd you land on ribs?
Okay. My first location was near Growers Ranch Produce Store. When I was down at the beach, the guy that owned Growers Ranch property, Rich Penjoyan, whose family still owns that property, and his son runs it now because Rich passed away at a very young age. We were partners for 15 years at where Monahan's is right now.
Okay.
And he was a wonderful partner. I probably still would have been there, but he died of cancer. And he actually is the one that said, let's do ribs, because at the time, Tony Roma's was the only big place for ribs, and they had a good location on Coast Highway that was doing well. They didn't have all the other ribs like Dickey's and Lucille's and all that. So I said, okay, I kind of was leaning toward fish. So I said, okay. And I thought I'd just put it together and then we'd sell it and make some money. But we were there a couple of years, and then they dug the freeway, the 55 freeway in there. It hurt our business a little bit, but we had established a good local following, so it wasn't terrible. But then when my son John wanted to come in the business, he would watch me go to work, and I'd have shorts on, and he'd have to wear a suit. So he said, Dad, I'd like to maybe get in there with you. So I lived in Mesa Verde at the time, and every time I'd go home, the Sizzler restaurant, which is our location now, property became for sale, and Rich wasn't around anymore, so I moved Newport Rib to where the Sizzler was. And it was a good move because it can support more than one family now.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into business. This worked out well.
Philanthropy is Newport Rib Company is extremely philanthropic, and we were talking earlier before we went on air here that how I became a chaplain with our Costa Mesa Police Department back in 1995. And I can remember a couple years after becoming a chaplain, we started an annual barbecue every year for the 4th of July for our cops, and we still do it. We're in like our 20th year, 21st year, something like that, where we serve tri-tip and chicken. But I remember Kirk Bauermeister, who's a mutual friend of both of ours, he said, hey, Mike, we ought to get Newport Rib Company to come in and do, baked beans and slaw and some, cornbread, whatnot. And that was really my first kind of introduction to Newport Rib Company. Now you fast forward 20 years almost, and clearly your restaurant, your family business is really a staple in this community, large part because of your community partnerships. And where did that philanthropic kind of beginning start? Can you point to anything specifically? Did your parents influence you? How did that get going?
When I think about it, I think my wife is probably one of the big people behind that. She always was giving and giving. And my kids all got that from her. I mean, I give, but I don't go overboard like they did. And now I am one of them.
Yeah.
I feel that we make money from our area. You should give back to our area. We love to give to local stuff. So I think it's good. It's a good feeling, and people support us, and I think they appreciate it too. No,
I love that, and partly because that's been my own philosophy, even as a church. Some churches will, support missions in Africa and Asia and stuff like that, but we have just chosen we're going to be local. So when we have money to give and money to share, we love to invest in our students and at our local high schools, which I know you're clearly doing on a regular basis. So let's talk about Karen. To be married 56 years,
correct.
That's a feat that doesn't happen a lot. So when you go back to Chicago and you think about where did you first meet, and what did you, after you met her, did you kind of know it was love at first sight, that she was the one, or did it take you a while?
We went to high school together.
Okay.
And she was a cheerleader and I played football, and we just dated all through high school.
Okay.
And through a couple of years of college. And then when we went to Illinois, we broke up for a couple of years. And I did not see her because I was here in California. And I got a letter from a friend of mine that says, hey, would you stand up for my wedding? So I said, yeah. So I drove back to Chicago. And on the way back, I just gave her a call. I'd say, hey, I'll be in Chicago. If you want to have a drink together, let me know. And that's 6 months later, we were engaged. Wow. It's a great story, but I've known her for 65 years, maybe, yeah.
Well, it's apparent. We were at an event here recently, you and I both, at a trellis event, and as we were engaging after the program was over and stuff, and Karen was there with you, it just seemed like you guys have been a team. Is that an apt description?
Yeah, I would say so. She does a lot with our church, and with school-aged children. She loves school-aged children. She taught adolescents about sex education, and she's a very sharp lady. She graduated probably one of the top 4 or 5 people at the University of Illinois. She's got a great personality. I'd say she's probably the nicest person I ever met.
So thank you, Karen. You guys are a great team, and I think you have any marriage tips for me? I've been married 33 years, 32 years. What's been the secret for the two of you?
Just treat her right, and there's no secret. You got to like each other. That's the key.
For sure. So, coming from Chicago, are you a Chicago Bears fan?
Not really. I'm
No.
a White Sox fan for
Okay.
baseball, which I'm not a Cub fan. And when I was in Chicago, we had the Chicago Cardinals there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everybody forgets that, and I was a Cardinal fan. I was a rebel.
So you in football, a few seasons ago, I think I might even announce football games for Costa Mesa High School. I might even announce one of your last games for when you were the referee. You did that for like 50 years, right?
50 years.
How did you where was your start in that?
Well, remember when I told you that come September 15th, I'd go down to the beach? Well, in the 60s and 70s, there was nobody there.
Okay.
So I was always interested in football. I played in high school and also in junior college. And, I just went to sign up. And it was a great part of my life. I got a lot of satisfaction out of it. I sure didn't do it for the money.
Yeah.
But I made a lot of great friends and a lot of wonderful experiences. Met a lot of nice coaches, mostly. And
Yeah.
it was great.
When I think about my own civic involvement in Costa Mesa, I can really attribute it to, in part, just announcing football games. You're at the schools, you're meeting school teachers, you're meeting parents,
Right.
You're meeting, and you're just loving on each other. But then over time, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, these friendships that you develop with people, they start to move up the food chain, and now suddenly they're in positions of leadership and influence, and it just happens. And
Right.
and so I guess I would say, for those of you listening or watching, if you're looking for a simple way to just engage your city and to add value, serve, coach, announce games, referee, which is where you really kind of got your
That's right. Plus, I loved it. I mean, I would get fired up for a big game, and I just loved it. And
Now,
I would feel bad if we didn't do a good job.
There's a
would feel
rumor out there that when Estancia High School would play Costa Mesa High School for the Battle for the Bell, that every time Mesa would threaten a long run, that you would have your hand on the flag. Is
Well,
there any truth to that?
The truth is that I never wanted to take those games. And the guys, normally you shouldn't take a game like that. Especially even at Estancia, I shouldn't have taken. But I will say, one time when Jim Scott Stadium opened, the guy said, "Why don't you take the first game there?" And they assigned me to the game, and Estancia was playing somebody else. And as I walked out on the field, Gordon Bolius, I'm sure you know, was the announcer, and he said, "Oh, there's Fran Ursini, great supporter of Estancia football." And I go, "Oh God, I'm in trouble."
In trouble, huh?
Yeah, but it worked out okay.
To wear the white hat,
Yeah,
which is really the crew chief of a squad, to me suggests here's someone who knows the rules, has to be, whether it's by choice or by nature, impartial, I mean, you're the person at the top of the food chain, so to speak, within the crew. Have you always been a natural leader? I mean, is it making the tough call? Is that easy for you, or has that something that you've learned and developed, and maybe even football refereeing has helped you?
Yeah, it probably has. The referee position probably is the easiest position to officiate. You don't have that much to look for. The guys on the field are the ones that really officiate the game. Where the referee's position gets tough is when you have to go explain a controversial call. But just the officiating part of it is not hard. I mean, you have a few, like, forward pass, not forward pass, stuff like that. But the guys down the fields are the ones that, and if you got 5 guys that are good down the field, probably you'll be a good referee.
Okay, it helps.
Yeah.
Well, without question, I think if you were to ask people in Costa Mesa to describe you, you're a talker, you're fun-loving, you love to be around, and I would think those characteristics probably are helpful when you're talking to a coach and trying to navigate why someone called it something.
Well, the coaches work so hard, and especially the coaches in the public leagues, where they don't make too much money. They probably make $1 an hour for all the time they put in. They deserve to be treated with respect, and you got to give them 100%.
Yeah.
And as long as you give 100%, everybody's going to make some mistakes.
Yeah.
But they work. I haven't found a coach I disliked yet. And when you get to see them off the field, they're all great guys, and they deserve everything they get.
Yeah, I mean, you're not in it to make mistakes and mess up people's lives, right? You're trying to add value. So let's do maybe just kind of wrap up our conversation. I want to do a word association game, and maybe for a framework, you can kind of think of the family business, your restaurant business and stuff. But I have 5 words that I want you to just kind of, whatever comes to your mind, kind of vamp on them. And, you're a wise man, Fran, and I've just have the highest respect for you. So I just want to kind of give you a chance to unpack some of these terms. So here's the first word. You ready? Family.
Family, you just want a word or what I think?
What you think. Just talk about
Family is the most important thing there is. I still insist that my kids come to all holidays at our house. We have 30 to 40 people at our house on Christmas Eve, Easter. They all come to our house, and that is from my upbringing. When we were kids, my folks would have, and with our aunts and uncles and all the family would come, we'd have 20, 30 people, and we'd eat a lot of pasta. So I still think you got to keep the family together as much as you can.
Well, and even when you talk about, your Newport Rib Company, I mean, that's the one value I just keep hearing oozing out of you. You talk about family, right? That's a culture almost.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It is, I think. And we treat our help like family.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lent them money, and when they need it.
Okay. Here's another word, customer service. What does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, 98% of the people are great. But a person pays, it costs a lot of money to go out and eat now. It's not like we're running a Taco Bell or something, it's expensive. And I think we are committed to customer service. We go over things with the people on catering jobs, not me so much, but John and Laura. And we get a lot of positive feedback on all the latest U2 stuff or whatever the hell they have now. So
yeah,
they seem to think that we do fine. So,
do you feel like that? Again, not to keep repeating the same thing, but you just have a knack. My experience with you is you've always been someone who just has an ability to treat people with respect. I'm sure you don't always agree with people. I'm sure you have
Right.
opinions, but that kind of fits into this customer. Have you learned that in the business? To have a franchise for 35 years, so to speak, and be successful at it and have a reputation that you have, you got to be doing something right in customer service.
I think we do treat people with respect, and I think when they come into Newport Rib or Naples Rib, that they feel like it's been a good deal for them, and it's a good deal for us. I mean, most people walk out with a pack, goodie bag.
Yeah.
But yeah, we try to hire. They don't have to be the best waitresses in the world, but if they're up people and know how to deal with people, if you're liked, people will think you're a good waitress or a server.
Yeah.
So they're nice, clean-cut kids, I think.
Do you think, and maybe John and Laura and maybe even Dave could pipe in on this, but do you spend a lot of time in assessing that when you hire people? Like, are they going to add value to the customer service experience? It is something that you really look for.
We look for certain things in people. My son John and Laura both interview anybody new. So, and I hear them talk about the people, what they thought their strong points were, and I think they do a good job. I don't do any of that anymore.
Okay, good. So here's another, we've sort of already talked about this, but I'll give you a chance to, again, think about it. Ribs. When you hear the word ribs, what do you think of?
Well, I think the tastiest meat there is if you put a good sauce on it, and I think that's really what we have. I think we have a really good sauce, but everybody's got different tastes. So,
yeah. Do you have like the secret sauce you've developed over the years, or how did you?
Well, yeah,
You don't have to give it away. We're not asking you to give it away here.
It's just you come in and get it yourself. But anyhow, we all just sat around the table one day and tried some different sauces.
Okay.
And my wife had a sauce that she liked. We just Mickey Moused it a little bit, and we get a lot of compliments on sauce. It's kind of sweet but tangy.
Yeah.
So
coming from Chicago, you better have a good sauce, right?
Yeah,
you got to represent the Midwest.
They got some good restaurants back there.
Pizza,
for
sure.
Dish, yeah, the whole thing.
It's cool. Okay, last word. Costa Mesa. When you hear the term Costa Mesa,
I think this is a great city to live in. It's got the perfect climate. It's got nice theaters and art. It's got high-end homes. It's got middle-class homes. It's I think a perfect place. It's near freeways, and it's cheaper than Newport.
Yeah. Do you get involved much in the political realm?
No.
Is that by choice?
Yeah, I
Have you ever learned the hard way, or is it just wisdom?
Yeah. It's a good way of staying out of trouble.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, again, Fran, I want to just officially say thank you for.
Thank you.
The Ursinis are a shareholder in this community, and if every business would even just a fraction of practice, what you as a family business does. I mean, it really raises the water level, and if all the water level rises, all the boats rise, and so for what it's worth, from a pastor who I see on here on the 4th of July with the Kiwanis fireworks stand, and you're running around, and it's just been an honor to be inspired by you. And I would say to those who are in this community, who are interested in learning from really a legend in our area about what it takes to run a good business, what it takes to be civically engaged, Fran's got time. He's still working, believe it or not, but he still has time, and just super honored and grateful for your contribution to our city.
Well, thanks for the kind words. I think my kids will carry it on too.
For sure.
Yeah.
So for all of us here at Palm Harvest with our City Leaders podcast, we're grateful for that you joined in with us today. I'm Mike Decker signing off with my friend Fran Ursini. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Palm Harvest podcast. Make sure you check us out at palmharvest.com.